Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Real Estate Guys. So, we're coming at you from all over the country once again from lovely Florida with Alan Jacobson and from the Yellowstone country in Montana, Sean Johnston. And I'm Trip Dunman here in the heart of Kansas City, home of the defending Super Bowl champions. And
Yeah,
hopefully,
but we're going to get you next time. Dolphins, go Fins.
defending World Series champions coming up, hopefully. So, in any event, all kidding aside, welcome today. We're going to talk about a common subject in real estate. Unfortunately, it's a change in life for some people. And we want to talk through kind of some of the emotions, and that has to do with the situation of divorce. And while that's a very sensitive subject, we want to talk about things we've experienced as agents and how we help clients that are in that situation best navigate, selling a house or buying a house, through that experience. So I'll kick it over to Alan to start us out. And Alan, why don't you get us going with your thoughts on emotions and divorce?
Okay. Well, I was thinking about starting off with a real estate related story, but I'm actually going to use a personal story. So I I was married at 24 years old, which when I look back, I'm like, how the heck did I get married at 24 years old? And I call that my practice marriage, by the way. And when we got divorced, I think I was about 28, maybe. It got so petty. First of all, my practice wife's parents adored me. They really loved me. She and I we just weren't meant for each other. And that's fine. So when it came to the divorce, though, blood is thicker than water. And boy, they lined up, in particular her father, against me, but in ways that were so petty. So, for instance, she had given me a camera, a Canon AE1, if you know that camera or remember it, gave me that as a gift, holiday time, and demanded that I give back that camera as part of the divorce settlement. Of course, she tried for alimony on a 2-year marriage, and there was no child support, thankfully, but just was like going for the jugular. And I was a young guy. I think I was 28 years old when we actually got through the divorce. And I just, I was like, whatever she wants. I said to my attorney, I didn't want to deal with it. It's not like we had a lot at that point in time. So I'm like, I just want out. I want it out. Now, not everybody is that fortunate. By the way, I got to tell you, I actually had lost in my car had been broken into, and I did lose a camera, but I did end up giving her back a camera, not the camera. I claimed that that Canon AE1 was the stolen camera. It wasn't. So if you're watching, what can I say? It's all done. But seriously, emotions can run really, really high in divorces. And consequently, we as agents can sometimes have a lot of difficulty in navigating those emotions. And as we were just talking in our pre show, we can do the best we possibly can to talk to the couple, and we may know one of them better than the other, but tell them, listen, I'm a professional. I'm going to do the best I can. I'm not here to represent either of you. I'm here to navigate a deal that will help both of you equally. Now, it's up to them to listen or not. But And for me to tell anybody that's going through divorce, well, keep your emotions out of it. That's great. That's all well and good, but it's really difficult because divorce is one of the most emotional times in our lives, especially if there are children involved. But regardless, I would recommend, because I have been trained in divorce real estate, I'm certified in it. I would recommend that number one, don't get a litigating attorney. If you're going to get an attorney, get a collaborative attorney. They're much more interested in having a meeting of the minds. And even better than that can be a mediator. So I have a potential client right now who's on his seventh attorney. And there's just no meeting of the minds. So thankfully, next week, after 3 years of dealing with this, they're finally going to a mediator next week. And I, for their sake, can only hope and pray that the mediator will help them come to a meeting of the minds. So, those are my stories with respect to emotions. And I'll just turn over to Trip now. I'm sorry, not Trip, Sean.
Well, actually, Trip, you had a great story that you're telling us about prior to getting started. Why don't you go ahead and share that with us right now?
Yeah. So kind of I shared two different spectrums that I've experienced personally. Um, one where there's an animostic relationship between the divorcing parties, and two where there's a clear collaborative relationship between the two parties. And kind of my takeaway in all of that, whether anyone fits on that spectrum or not, is that we as agents communicate fairly and properly with them to make sure that each party knows that you're representing both of them in an effort, and you're communicating with both of them equally in an effort to get, in most cases, the home sold, not purchased, but sold. And I think where there can be some breakdowns in that process when one party may call offline and a conversation occurs, and naturally the other party might not be on that. So it's very important to keep just something simple as a group text or a group email that kind of summarizes any sort of discussions that go on, but basically treat people fairly. Now, I will also say I've been involved in divorce situations that have led to court situations. And for those of you who don't know, at least in the area I live in, that there are divorce settlements done in court via Zoom meetings. And that was something that was new to me. I didn't even know that existed. I think that was kind of one of the offshoots during COVID that the courts have had to adjust to that. And so that happens as well. But at the end of the day, it's about representing both parties to get them to the finish line. Now, if it's an animostic relationship, perhaps there's even more communication that needs to occur. But I think it's also very important when it's an amicable relationship that I don't assume that I need to communicate less, because I may not give the right information if I'm not communicating to both parties adequately. So that's kind of my big takeaways, no matter where they are, is to definitely communicate with them equally and fairly, and realize that our goal is to not be involved in their relationship, the divorce itself, but be a facilitator to help them both accomplish the goal that they're after. Sean, I'm sure you got some really good stories to tell us. How about what's your experience been?
Well, it's interesting. In real estate so far, I haven't had any real divorce transactions. I've had a lot of emotional family type transactions where I'm working with multiple parties on the same transaction. And I would, again, just mirror what you said, Tripp, that it is, and actually what Alan was saying as well. Anytime you're dealing with any sort of a real estate transaction that has multiple parties working towards an outcome that may not be the same for both parties, or the same desire for both parties, it's all about communication. We had one here recently where we were helping sell a home for a married couple, and one of the members struggled with English, and so oftentimes we would speak with the other party because it was easier for clarity's sake. And we tried very hard to keep them both on the calls together. And even in that scenario where there wasn't any emotional challenges in the background, it was still very hard to make sure that both parties, or I should say, the one party that was struggling with communication had a hard time feeling like they were being properly represented, or people were understanding their concerns or fears about the particular transaction that we were working through. But what you were saying, Tripp, is so important. Having been an estate planner and done a substantial amount of work working with families with real estate transactions in what we're going to talk about next week, which is in the realm of, I guess we could say, death and taxes. None of us are getting out alive, and we never get to avoid dealing with the IRS. We had to deal with a lot of emotions there, and when I look back at our conversation prior to starting the Zoom call, the fact that we're operating as a fiduciary for the parties, we have to act in the best interest of the parties that are in that transaction, whether it's in a normal, we're selling for one party and somebody else is representing somebody else, or we're in this environment. I have found we've been talking kind of, it feels like more towards other agents to a degree, the way we've been discussing this, but if you're a person needing to sell a home and you're in this situation, you need to find an agent that is good at communicating, that is not going to help escalate the emotions that are already difficult as they are. You need somebody that's going to be level-headed, capable of hearing both parties, and communicating in a way that allows both parties to really hear each other and help you get to outcomes. Like Alan or Tripp was saying, with collaborative outcomes, Alan was absolutely correct. This is not a place where you want litigators. It's one of the challenges in real estate in general. If you have an agent on the other side of a transaction that has a litigation mindset, or a I win, you lose mindset, you're always going to have more difficulty getting to the end result and getting all parties there happily, whether it's just a normal real estate transaction or something with a divorce involved. So take the time to make sure that you have conversations, lengthy conversations if necessary, with the agents that you're considering helping you through that process, and make sure that they're capable of communicating, capable of being concerned. I think it's important that you have somebody that cares about your situation, but is also able to, be that disinterested third party that can help you come to clarity through those really difficult emotional moments. As I've been there. Apparently Alan's been there. I've been through divorce, and I will say I've been through a fair enough amount of death in my life as well. None of that was anywhere near as emotionally stressful and difficult as going through a divorce. So make sure you've got somebody that's participating in this process that has some sensitivity while having that, strength of character to be able to talk through the situation. Alan, I can tell you have something to say.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that, because one important party, or two important parties to all of this that we haven't talked about, are the attorneys. So when you have litigating attorneys, they're going to be like this. They're going to be each at each other. They're going to be looking to ramp up their hourly pay. and they're going to have it drag on. And that's why I suggest collaborative attorneys. But I think also if there's a way for the realtor that is representing the sellers to do the best job he or she can to get the attorneys on the same page, then it will provide a smoother transaction. And I'm not saying that's going to be an easy thing, especially with litigating attorneys. But with collaborative attorneys, their objective is to make it work. So that's something that has to be very carefully thought about.
Yeah, and it's tough in an emotional environment, right? For I think all of us at some level, when placed in that environment, however you got there, there's a part of us that just wants to win. Or you have the other out, like Alan, you had commented on, and I know I've been in that situation where I just want this to be done. The pain and suffering I'm going through is no longer worth it. Uh, and and then you have other parties that get involved, that whether it's the realtor, whether it's the attorney, who have a tendency sometimes to pour gasoline on the fire. And it's rarely, I should say, I don't think that's ever helpful in any situation. It's always better to have calm, cool heads and look for an agent who has that stability, has that ability to listen, which is probably the biggest thing, is having somebody that's capable of letting you talk and get your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions out there. And sometimes that's all it takes, is getting it on the table so that somebody's heard it, and then we can take that information and we can communicate it in the best possible way with the other parties and help you come to an outcome that makes sense. So,
And also, let's remember that when there's warring going on, which oftentimes a divorce can have two warring parties, the husband and the wife, but also the attorneys. Guess who comes out ahead in the end when that happens? The attorneys. So think about that really carefully. And if you're going through a divorce, or you know anybody that's going through a divorce, try to look at having a more collaborative approach or a mediator. Because just like in the lawsuit, the real estate lawsuit, the attorney that represented the plaintiffs making a fortune. And the plaintiffs, the sellers, a little bit of money they're going to get. So try to avoid all that stress, the emotion, and what would be a great outcome for attorneys if it drags on.
Trip, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I guess the last thing that struck me while we were, if you're out there and you're in this situation, unfortunate divorce type situation, and you're looking to hire an agent that's, we've talked about them being communicative and being calm, but I think it's also very important that that agent is very diligent in keeping copious notes.
Mm.
Because if the situation gets to court hearings, and not that you want it to get to that, but it's very important to have the records of what's transpired throughout the process. It makes things go a lot smoother. And I think there's a special skill set for agents that are more adept at handling these kind of situations, and maybe those that are better suited for other types of situations. So anyway, that's what I'd leave you with. And yeah, we don't want divorce on anyone, as we've all alluded to. It's not it's a painful experience for many people. And with that, there's a sensitive and a delicate way to handle it. And I think, the better we are at being sensitive to that and being communicative to help people, the better off the situation goes, regardless of the ultimate outcome.
Oh, great. Well, very well said, Trip. Well, and on that note, I'd say we've covered everything that we can today, and appreciate everybody hanging with us all the way to the end. As always, like and subscribe, share this with a friend if you think you have somebody that could benefit from the information that we've shared today. And if you need help and you're in this situation, I always tell all my clients, I only do 2 of these a year. So, and I just did the last one last week. No, if you're in this situation, you are needing help, reach out, let us know if we can help you in our particular markets. And if not, like Alan was saying, we are part of networks that actually deal with this as a specific expertise, or what's the word I'm looking for? But they're a specific practice. And so we would be happy to point you in the right direction and help you out. So for this week, thanks very much for joining the Real Estate Guys. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week when we talk about another emotional topic. And we're going to talk about what happens after the death or going through a probate situation and things to be prepared for there. So we look forward to talking to you next week. Take care.